Good morning, people. How are we doing today? So today I decided to look a little bit like a DJ. This is a podcast, so um, enjoy the new look. And I'm wearing a Chelsea jersey today. I hope it's a good day. Yeah. How's the weather in your area? It's been raining for about 2 weeks straight here, so it's a bit on the cold side, and I think winter is here, so we're preparing for the cold end of the year. All right, so today I wanted to talk about the concept of net worth. I did an exercise in our community recently, and I discovered that a lot of people are completely ignorant of how to calculate their net worth. Now, one thing that I've observed also is that most Africans are oblivious of what their net worth is, and I think most people are waiting for when they make a lot of money before they bother about it. And maybe that's why many of us make many not so wise financial decisions. So today I wanted to talk about your net worth, why it's important for you to know it, why it's important for you to have a picture of where you register on the radar financially so that you can know what and what to do as regarding either increasing or decreasing or whatever it is your decision is. So let's get right to it. So your net worth is just generally a complete picture of your financial decisions over many years. So it involves all the, you know, assets that you have and all the liabilities that you have as well. So an asset is basically something that you've put money on that can bring some returns, yes. And I also think that anything that you can convert to capital is also an asset. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that appreciates in value. It can be something that preserves value, for example. So if you buy a gold wristwatch and for some time you are able to sell the gold wristwatch. Now, not those your outside gold, I'm talking original gold now. Now, when the price of gold goes up, there's a high chance that you can resell that wristwatch at a higher price. So that's an asset, for example. And it can be your phone, even though your phone loses value over time, but it can also be an asset. For me, my phones are my basic tool of productivity. So, whichever way you look at it, it's my office. So if my phone is not, um, if my phone is not doing well, for example, then my work will suffer. And that's why, of course, you know a workman by his tool. If you're a business person or you're doing, so for those doing content creation, for example, they need to use devices with very good cameras, right? Because, if you make videos that are not clear, a lot of people will lose interest in watching. And so many things will determine whether what you have is an asset or a liability. So for example, somebody who has a car, the car in itself is a liability, but it's also a productivity tool. So in that context, it can be an asset. But the point here is you're taking an inventory of all the things that you have that you can easily convert to cash, right? Or capital in this case. And you're also taking all the things that constantly take money out of your pocket. In fact, when we did the survey, many people listed their families, family members, siblings as their liabilities because I guess those people take money out of their pocket fairly often. And I found that very amusing. But of course, it's logical, it makes sense. Those that bill you from time to time obviously, some form of liability, even though these same people can also be assets in a different context. Yes, so it's important for you to understand this because, and I also saw some people confuse um, owning things like properties, land, houses, as an abstract thing. So they say they don't add that to their net worth. Now, if you want to get a full picture of your net worth, you need to estimate the value of those assets and add it up, and then look at all your liabilities as well. So, for example, those who have debt is a liability. So, you have to consider that. So, if you have assets of, say, 100 million and you have liabilities of, say, about 60 million, that means your net worth is 40 million, right? And some will say, okay, what if I don't know the value of some of these things? Of course, you can take an estimate. You can check online for maybe properties in that area. What is the price range? So that gives you an idea. You can take an average and use that for your estimation. Now, remember that your net worth is always an estimation per time, so it's not an accurate picture. Because sometimes, if so, for example, let's take Elon Musk, for example, is worth 200 and something billion dollars, but that is in shares in most of his companies, which means that if he's going to liquidate those shares, he's most likely not going to get the 200 billion because it's going to, of course, affect the prices of the company's shares as well, and it's going to crash the market to a large extent. So that means that in terms of liquidity, there's a high chance that he cannot get that. But that's an estimate because if today's price is a certain amount, then that is what is going to be used to estimate. That's why you see net worth of a lot of people is always going up and down. It was yesterday I saw a report about CZ, the CEO of Binance, and is as of January this year, his net worth is about 90 something billion dollars, but I think now is around 17, 18 billion, and that's a huge drop. Yes, but it also doesn't mean much because really, so next year, if there's a bull market, there's a high chance that his net worth is going to skyrocket again. And that's the thing about net worth, it's always rising and falling. So that you have a low net worth today does not mean that you are going to remain that way. Of course, if you don't make changes to poor habits. So, for example, there's some people who have a high propensity um, for liabilities. So they're always buying things that they don't need. They're always buying things that loses value over time. They're always buying things that they cannot use for productive um, means, and these things tend to eat deep into your net worth. Now, there are some people who have negative net worth. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just a picture of where you are, and it can be better. That's why it's important to know it, because when you know it, you will then have an idea of what to do to get better, right? So I remember some years ago when my net worth was negative, and I've always wanted to be a millionaire, obviously, even billionaire, and I've always wondered, how it was going to happen. But I kept adding to my skills. I kept, adding value to myself, adding value to people around me, and it was just a matter of time before that negative network started changing. Yes. And that's why it's important for you to be aware of what your net worth is and then start working from there. So it's important for you to it's almost impossible for you to chart a course financially for yourself if you're unaware of where you are, right? Because, like we said, creating wealth is a process, but if you don't know where you are in the journey, you most likely will be lost, at the end of it. So, if you have any questions, of course, you can drop them in the comment sections, and I am going to do my best to respond to every one of them. Yeah, thank you for listening and catch you in the next video.